He learned early on a truth that nobody likes to hear. Respect isn't asked for, it's earned through value. And here's something that might sting a little. If you need to remind people to respect you, it's because your position is still cheap. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that the world doesn't react to speeches about dignity. It reacts to the perception of scarcity. Machiavelli already warned that better to be feared than loved is often about not being easily replaceable. The end justifies the means when the means is to rebuild your presence in the game, because while you're trying to be accepted, someone quieter is becoming rare. Decisions based on real human nature reveal something simple. What is abundant is ignored. What is difficult to access is valued. Virtù and fortuna favor those who understand this mechanism. Constant adaptability is learning to adjust your posture until it weighs on the environment. And perhaps the most uncomfortable question is, are you asking for respect or teaching people to underestimate you? He observes something curious. Those who clamor for recognition usually reveal a need, and need, when exposed, weakens. Avoiding being hated isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about maintaining a strategic posture. The appearance of virtue is about seeming confident even before being validated. The calculated use of force here isn't aggression, it's positioning. Your own loyal armies form around those who transmit value without begging for attention. The end justifies the means when the means is to become scarce enough that your absence generates discomfort. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that respect is a consequence of perception, not intention. And in this video, he will show something that few teach: how to transform your presence, your silence, your standards, and your absence into strategic assets. Because in the end, it's not about being popular, it's about being too valuable to be ignored. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He often says that the world doesn't pay for what is essential, it pays for what is rare. Water keeps you alive, but diamonds move empires. Strange, right? But it's not sentimentality, it's pure economics, supply and demand. And here comes Machiavelli with that cold vision of politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The end justifies the means when the means is understanding how the game works. If something is abundant, it loses perceived value. If it is scarce, it gains aura. And this doesn't just apply to precious stones, it applies to people. Those who are always available become tap water. Those who appear infrequently but with impact become diamonds. Better to be feared than loved? Perhaps not exactly feared here, but certainly respected, and respect is born from strategic scarcity. Virtù and fortuna walk hand in hand when someone understands that excessive presence erodes value. Decisions based on real human nature show that the human brain associates difficulty with importance. Constant adaptability means realizing when you've become too common, and nobody pays dearly for the common. He observes, for example, the professional who responds to messages at any hour, accepts any invitation, says yes to everything. At first, everyone loves it. Then they begin to devalue it, because without realizing it, he taught the world that his time is infinite, and nothing infinite is precious. Machiavelli understood this when he spoke about the appearance of virtue. It's not always about being accessible, but about appearing strategic. The calculated use of force here is simple. Limit availability. Want a practical example? Stop responding immediately. Create return windows. If you work with clients, set schedules. If you're in a relationship, don't always be chasing after them. Read The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene and observe how scarcity creates magnetism. Study companies like Apple or Hermes. They don't distribute to everyone. Their own loyal armies are built with criteria, not desperation. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean always pleasing. It means maintaining value. And value is born from conscious limitation. Now he asks an uncomfortable question. Are you acting like water or diamonds? Because you see, politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that the world reacts to what you communicate, not to what you feel. The end justifies the means when the means are protecting your position. If you give too much of yourself, explain too much, make yourself too available, you are training people not to fear you, much less value you. Better to be feared than loved may sound harsh, but in this context, it means being rare enough to be taken seriously. Virtù and fortuna favor those who understand the timing of appearing and disappearing. Constant adaptability is adjusting your presence until it regains weight. Because when someone starts to realize you're not always there, something changes. A little friction arises. And it is precisely in this friction that the next level of the game begins. He often explains that luxury is never about price, it's about access. Have you noticed that the most exclusive stores have that velvet rope at the entrance? It's not to physically prevent access, it's to signal selectivity, and that changes everything. Machiavelli already taught that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires understanding perception. The end justifies the means when the means is to protect your position. If everyone easily enters your life, your time, your decisions, you become a public square, not a grand hall. Better to be feared than loved here means something simple, not being easily accessible. Avoiding being hated isn't about pleasing everyone, it's about maintaining clear boundaries. Virtù and fortuna favor those who create filters. Constant adaptability is realizing when you've become too easy. Decisions based on real human nature show that human beings value what they need to conquer. And if there's no friction, there's no conquest. He observes, for example, professionals who create selection processes even to serve clients. Does it seem arrogant? No. It's strategy, calculated use of force. If you accept any partnership, any friendship, any proposal, you communicate neediness. Now, if you establish criteria, minimum values, specific deadlines, behavioral standards, something changes. Your own loyal armies are not formed by convenience, but by alignment. Want to apply this in practice? If you work in service, create a form before the meeting. If you are in a relationship, make it clear what you accept and what you don't accept. Read Essentialism by Greg McKeown and understand the power of elimination. Study Michelin-starred restaurants, advance reservations, waiting lists. It's not antipathy, it's scarcity with direction. The appearance of virtue here means seeming selective because you truly are. And this elevates your social perception. He then provokes, how many people today have unrestricted access to you because politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that those who are too accessible are seen as replaceable. The end justifies the means when the means is to create strategic friction. Better to be feared than loved. Sometimes yes, because respect is born from limits. Avoiding being hated is acting with elegance, not rudeness. It's saying no firmly and calmly. Virtù and fortuna favor those who control doors, not those who beg to enter others. Constant adaptability means adjusting your filters as you grow. Decisions based on real human nature show that the more difficult the access, the greater the perceived value. And when you start limiting who enters, you discover something curious. It's not just access that changes, it's how you are treated. And this leads us to something even more powerful, the value of what you choose to reveal. He often says that in the social game, those who talk too much pay a high price. Information is currency, and currency circulating too much loses value. Machiavelli understood this with surgical precision. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires controlling what is revealed. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve strategic advantage. Those who over-explain their intentions hand over the map and compass to their competitor. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, is to be unpredictable enough to generate caution. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean opening your heart to everyone. It means measuring your words. Virtù and fortuna favor those who know how to wait. Constant adaptability requires realizing when you are speaking out of anxiety, not strategy. Decisions based on real human nature show that mystery generates respect. The appearance of virtue is also knowing how to seem more profound than accessible. And the calculated use of force here is simply silence. He observes corporate meetings and laughs inwardly. Whoever speaks first usually loses power. Whoever listens gathers data. Your own loyal armies aren't built by revealing the entire plan before the battle. Want to apply this today? In negotiations, answer questions with questions. In discussions, speak last. On social media, don't expose every step of your project. Show results, not processes. Read Machiavelli's The Prince and see how strategic silence shapes perception. Study investors like Warren Buffett. He rarely reacts impulsively. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that whoever controls information controls the pace. The end justifies the means when the means is to maintain an advantage. Is it better to be feared than loved? Sometimes being enigmatic is more powerful than being likable, because excessive likability reveals too much. And whoever reveals too much weakens. He then provokes something uncomfortable. Why do you feel the need to explain so much? Insecurity? Desire for approval? Decisions based on real human nature show that the more someone justifies themselves, the less authority they convey. Virtue and fortune favor those who speak with surgical precision. Constant adaptability is learning to endure silence without nervously filling it. Avoiding being hated is maintaining elegance, not arrogance. The appearance of virtue is appearing centered even under pressure. Calculated use of force is responding only when necessary. Loyal armies respect leaders who don't waste words. And when you start talking less, something curious happens. Your reactions begin to be observed more closely because silence amplifies impact. And this leads us to an even more visible next level: controlling emotions in the face of provocation. He always observes the same scene. Someone provokes, someone reacts, and whoever reacts loses. It's that simple. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that uncontrolled emotion is a sign of strategic vulnerability. Machiavelli already understood that better to be feared than loved isn't about brutality, it's about stability. Whoever explodes relinquishes power. Whoever maintains composure transmits dominance. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve one's position. Virtù and fortuna favor those who control themselves before controlling their environment. Decisions based on real human nature show that people respect those who are not easily shaken. Constant adaptability is knowing when to respond and when to ignore. Avoiding being hated is maintaining firmness without theatrics. The appearance of virtue is seeming unshakable even when the pressure increases. And the calculated use of force here is simply not reacting in the heat of the moment. He often gives a practical example. In a meeting, someone tries to belittle you publicly. Most people defend themselves immediately, raising their voices, giving lengthy justifications. And that's where they lose their aura. Now imagine another posture. A brief pause, a firm gaze, a short and objective answer, or even strategic silence. Loyal armies of their own align with leaders who demonstrate self-control. Want to train this? Practice delayed reaction. If you receive a provocative message, wait an hour before responding. Read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations and observe the power of a disciplined mind. Study high-level athletes, extreme pressure but neutral expression. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that the world tests emotional stability. The end justifies the means when the means is to maintain authority. Is it better to be feared than loved? Sometimes, being emotionally unshakable generates more respect than being emotionally accessible. This then provokes an uncomfortable reflection. How many times have you surrendered your power because you couldn't withstand the provocation? Decisions based on real human nature show that provocateurs seek reaction to gain ground. Virtù and fortuna favor those who choose when to move. Constant adaptability means understanding that emotion is a tool, not a command. Avoiding being hated means acting with elegant coldness, not arrogance. The appearance of virtue is maintaining composure under attack. Calculated use of force means acting only when the action truly pays off. Your own loyal armies respect those who demonstrate emotional consistency. And when you master your reactions, something changes in the dynamic. Because not needing to react begins to show something even stronger, the absence of necessity. And that's exactly where the game really starts to change. He often says something unsettling. Those who need too much lose. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that excessive need weakens one's position. Machiavelli already understood that the end justifies the means when the means is to preserve power. And nothing corrodes power more than visible dependence. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps here it is better to be self-sufficient than anxious. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean begging for acceptance. It means maintaining composure. Virtue and fortune favor those who can rise from the table without trembling. Decisions based on real human nature show that those who demonstrate excessive urgency receive worse offers. Constant adaptability is knowing when to continue negotiating and when to leave. The appearance of virtue is appearing confident even in the face of risk. And the calculated use of force in this case is simply the ability to say no and walk away. He observes business negotiations, relationships, friendships. Those who fear losing accept any condition. Those who know they can lose and survive choose better. Loyal armies are built with those who share strength, not neediness. Want to apply this today? If you're negotiating salary, be willing to look for another opportunity. If you're in a relationship where your boundaries are ignored, be willing to leave. Read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss and understand how the willingness to walk away from the table alters the dynamics. Study investors who maintain strategic cash reserves. Liquidity is freedom. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that real power is born from the option of choice. The end justifies the means when the means is to maintain independence. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps better to be free than dependent. He then poses a painful question. Could you truly leave the situations you accept today? Decisions based on real human nature show that the world tests your conviction. Virtue and fortune favor those who don't negotiate under desperation. Constant adaptability means creating alternatives before needing them. Avoiding being hated means acting with dignity when leaving, not with scandal. The appearance of virtue is maintaining serenity even when rejecting. Calculated use of force is demonstrating that your presence is a choice, not a necessity. Your own loyal armies respect leaders who don't beg for alliances, and when you learn to leave without drama, something changes in perception. Because absence begins to generate questioning, and questioning, when well used, becomes a strategic tool. And that's where we enter the truly Machiavellian turnaround. He often explains that poorly planned absence is abandonment, but strategic absence is power. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that constant presence numbs perception. Machiavelli understood that the end justifies the means when the means is to reposition oneself in the game. Is it better to be feared than loved? Sometimes it's better to be missed than ignored in presence. Avoiding being hated here means leaving with elegance, not resentment. Virtù and fortuna favor those who know how to disappear at the right moment. Decisions based on real human nature show that the brain values what it loses. Constant adaptability is perceiving when your image has become too predictable. The appearance of virtue is maintaining composure even in silence. The calculated use of force in this context is withdrawing to increase future impact. And loyal armies begin to question when the leader withdraws, and that's when value grows. He observes artists who release few projects, but with intensity. He observes leaders who aren't always available, but when they speak, everyone listens. Want to apply this? If you post shallow content every day, try reducing frequency and increasing quality. If you're always present in groups where you're not valued, step away for a while. Read Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb and understand the power of tension and absence. In the financial market, companies that announce share buybacks signal confidence through scarcity. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that excess dilutes. The end justifies the means when the means is to rebuild perception. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps better to be remembered than trivialized. Because when you disappear, the environment reveals how relevant your presence was. He then provokes something almost uncomfortable. Do you have the courage to disappear strategically? Decisions based on real human nature show that people only value what their absence generates discomfort. Virtue and fortune favor those who use timing as a weapon. Constant adaptability is adjusting your visibility according to the environment. Avoiding being hated is not turning absence into emotional blackmail. The appearance of virtue is maintaining consistency even in prolonged silence. Calculated use of force is returning when the terrain is favorable. Your own loyal armies don't abandon you, they wait. And when you learn to leave, be silent and return with more weight. You realize that the game is no longer about pleasing. It's about standards, and this leads us to a point that few can bear to face: intolerance of mediocrity. He often says that the world doesn't test your talent first, it tests your standards. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that those who compromise essential values to be accepted become predictable and manipulable. Machiavelli already warned that the end justifies the means, but never at the cost of the power structure itself. Is it better to be feared than loved? Sometimes yes, because those who maintain firm standards naturally generate respect. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean diluting principles. Virtù and fortuna favor those who maintain consistency under pressure. Decisions based on real human nature show that people respect those who don't compromise their essence. Constant adaptability means adjusting strategies, not core values. The appearance of virtue is not pretense, it's visible consistency. The calculated use of force here means saying, "This is not up to my standards," and loyal armies form around those who have non-negotiable criteria. He observes something common. Someone starts with high goals, strong discipline, and clear standards. Then, to avoid appearing arrogant, they begin to compromise. They accept delays, disrespect, and subpar work. And little by little, their identity is diluted. Want to apply this in practice? Define 3 non-negotiable standards today. It could be punctuality, quality of delivery, or mutual respect. If someone repeatedly breaks them, adjust access. Read Principles by Ray Dalio and see how strong systems are born from clear criteria. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that the world respects structure. The end justifies the means when the means is to protect your strategic identity. Is it better to be feared than loved? Is it better to be consistent than popular? Because popularity without standards becomes fragility. He then asks an almost uncomfortable question. What are you tolerating that is eroding your authority? Decisions based on real human nature show that every unjustified concession reduces perceived value. Virtue and fortune favor those who maintain firmness without theatrics. Constant adaptability is about adjusting to the environment, not lowering standards. Avoiding being hated is about acting elegantly when setting limits. The appearance of virtue is maintaining composure even when others pressure you. Calculated use of force is about silently cutting excesses. Your own loyal armies align with those who don't waver according to convenience. And when you stop negotiating your level, something changes in how you see yourself, because it's no longer about fitting into the environment. It's about assessing whether the environment fits you, and that opens up a profound mental shift. He often says that the biggest mistake isn't being rejected, it's living by invisible, unspoken request for permission. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that those who constantly seek validation communicate structural insecurity. Machiavelli understood that the end justifies the means when the means are to preserve one's strategic position, not to please audiences. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it's better to be selective than needy. Avoiding being hated isn't about trying to fit into every environment. Virtù and fortuna favor those who evaluate before entering. Decisions based on real human nature show that those who choose transmit greater value than those who beg for choice. Constant adaptability is adjusting behavior without losing identity. The appearance of virtue is appearing comfortable with oneself. The calculated use of force is simply inverting the question, does this serve me? And loyal armies form around those who position themselves as a choice, not as an available option. He observes job interviews, social gatherings, business meetings. Most people go in thinking, will they like me? And that changes their posture, voice, even values. Now imagine another mindset. Does this company respect my standards? Does this group share my principles? Want to apply this? Before accepting a proposal, evaluate the culture and real growth potential. Before entering a relationship, observe the consistency between words and actions. Read The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown and understand the value of strategic authenticity. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that positioning defines perception. The end justifies the means when the means is choosing environments that empower you. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it's better to be respected than superficially approved, because cheap approval has a short lifespan. He then provokes an almost silent reflection. How many decisions have you made trying to be accepted? Decisions based on real human nature show that those who position themselves as a prize are treated as prizes. Virtue and fortune favor those who adopt a selective posture. Constant adaptability means maintaining flexibility without losing essence. Avoiding being hated means acting naturally when refusing what doesn't serve you. The appearance of virtue is maintaining dignity even in the face of rejection. Calculated use of force means knowing that not being everywhere is a sign of value. Your own loyal armies respect leaders who choose with discernment. And when you internalize this luxurious identity, an inevitable side effect arises. Not everyone will understand, and that is the cost that few are willing to pay. He often says something few dare to admit. The rarer you become, the fewer people understand you. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that differentiation generates collective discomfort. Machiavelli already understood that the end justifies the means when the means is to maintain sovereignty, even if it costs popular approval. Is it better to be feared than loved? At certain times, yes, because those who are not understood are often labeled before being respected. Avoiding being hated does not mean avoiding strategic solitude. Virtù and fortuna favor those who maintain their position even under judgment. Decisions based on real human nature show that the masses react to difference with initial resistance. Constant adaptability is adjusting strategy without diluting identity. The appearance of virtue is maintaining a dignified posture even when criticized. The calculated use of force here is enduring social discomfort, and loyal armies of your own only emerge after you overcome the period of incomprehension. He observes entrepreneurs who decided to stand out from the crowd and were called arrogant. He observes people who raised the bar for relationships and were called cold. He observes leaders who set boundaries and were labeled difficult. Want to apply this? Mentally prepare yourself to lose approval when you raise the bar. Read Mindset by Carol Dweck to strengthen your growth mindset. Study the trajectory of figures like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, admired later, criticized at the beginning. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that recognition is rarely immediate. The end justifies the means when the means are to sustain a long-term vision. Is it better to be feared than loved? Sometimes it's better to be respected in the future than applauded in the present, because easy applause often costs identity. He then asks the most serious question of all. Are you willing to walk alone for a while? Decisions based on real human nature show that growth requires temporary isolation. Virtue and fortune favor those who endure the silent journey. Constant adaptability is about strengthening oneself without losing direction. Avoiding being hated is about acting ethically, even under criticism. The appearance of virtue is maintaining consistency when no one is watching. Calculated use of force is resisting the temptation to back down just to be accepted. Your own loyal armies appear when your consistency proves its worth. And when you accept the ultimate cost, you realize something liberating. It's not about being expensive for everyone. It's about being too expensive to be ignored by those who truly matter. Now he throws the question back at you without softening his stance. Are you going to keep trying to convince the world of your worth, or are you going to start positioning yourself as someone who isn't for sale cheaply? Politics guided by reality, not ideals, has shown throughout this video that respect doesn't come from explanations. It comes from strategic scarcity, high standards, and the absence of need. Machiavelli understood that it is often better to be feared than loved, to be consistent enough that no one dares to cross your boundaries. The end justifies the means when the means is to rebuild your own social perception. Decisions based on real human nature make it clear those who are always available are easily replaced. Virtù and fortuna favor those who know how to appear, remain silent, and leave at the right time. Constant adaptability is adjusting your posture until it carries weight. Avoiding being hated is acting firmly without losing elegance. The appearance of virtue is maintaining consistency even under criticism. The calculated use of force is choosing when to act and when simply to observe. Then he asks you something direct. What standards will you stop negotiating today? Where are you being water when you could be a diamond? Are you willing to create friction, impose limits, endure silence, and walk alone for a while? Your own loyal armies don't form around those who seek approval, but around those who uphold value. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, isn't coldness. It's lucidity. The end justifies the means when the means is protecting your strategic dignity. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps better to be respected than ignored. Virtù and Fortuna walk with those who decide to take control of their own perception. Constant adaptability is remembering that a strong identity isn't born from acceptance, it's born from choice. If this content resonated with you, don't let it die here. Apply it, observe your interactions, adjust your presence, raise your standards. And then tell me, which of these strategies will you test first? Comment below, because a declared decision is stronger than silent intention. And if you want to continue learning how to use strategy, psychology, and positioning to become someone impossible to ignore, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your own loyal armies are built with consistency, and your transformation begins when you decide to stop asking and start becoming.